Ball Podcast. Hoops and Heels.
Hello everyone and welcome back yet again to the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed that last segment. We continue our fantasy NFL season. We will transition from the QBs to the running backs. Now, a lot of interesting performances from the running backs. A lot of physicality, a lot of new faces and new places that really bring versatility to different offenses. But at the end of the day, I really think there's a standard that's being set in terms of the running backs. Because a lot of teams still use the run game to great effect. And what I found very interesting was that two of the players on this list are running backs under new head coaches. And it's very telling that these new head coaches are defensive-minded as well. We'll get to these guys in a little bit. But at the end of the day, it does speak to the fact that running backs can be used in many different ways. There are some players on this list who are fantastic receiving running backs as well, and there are some who are just ground and pound guys. So it's really up to who you like and who you think fits the profile of your fantasy football team. With that being said, let's go into our running back winners from this week. So let's start off going way back to Friday night, where running back made his debut in a foreign country, and he really set them ablaze. First time since Terrell Owens, the Eagle, scored 3 touchdowns in their debut, and he really looks fantastic in an Eagles uniform, and an Eagles offense that really needed his kind of versatility to really open things up for their dynamic QB, Jalen Hurts. We start off with Saquon Barkley. What I love about Saquon Barkley is that he is just a fascinating player now because of the way he perfectly fits into this Philadelphia Eagles offense. In terms of all the offseason moves of all these running backs, Saquon Barkley made the most sense. And I think that makes the most sense because it doesn't necessarily alleviate too many burdens for Jalen Hurts in terms of this offense. I still think if we got a question last week that I want to refer to from a commentator in Cuppy who was talking about the push, and I still think Jalen Hurts will be the guy there. But he just opens up a lot of different ways that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be versatile and volatile in their rushing attacks. It also opens up a lot of things with the passing game as well. So as you can see, 24 carries on the ground, 106 yards, 3 total touchdowns, of course, 2 catches, 23 yards, and 1 touchdown through the air, 33.2 fantasy points overall. And so Saquon really set the standard for running backs. Will he be the best fantasy running back this year? Maybe not, because of the way he's now diversifying the Philadelphia Eagles offense. There are still guys out there. A.J. Brown had a fantastic game. Devontae Smith is going to go into this offense that I really like. There will be games that Saquon will get a lot of touches, maybe not the yards production that we saw this Friday. But at the end of the day, he's really set the standard for a different look for the Philadelphia Eagles offense. Coming next, a guy who also makes perfect sense for his perspective, particular offense. He can move to a different team, and that is Joe Mixon. And what Joe Mixon, actually, go to the end here. Joe Mixon, the reason why I think he makes sense for Houston is because Houston didn't expect to be so vertical in the first season. Bobby Slowick really thought that he could emphasize the run game there, but for some reason they didn't like what they liked. They didn't see what they liked in Dameon Pierce, so they went on and got Joe Mixon. And in the first game, really set the standard at running back. 30 carries on the ground really goes to show that when you have a dominant quarterback like C.J. Stroud, you can really start to build around it. This was a team-friendly deal as well because they're taking advantage of acquiring veteran players to incorporate into the offense as C.J. Stroud is still in his rookie contract. And this was probably the savviest move of them all for them. 30 carries, 159 yards, 1 TD, 26.8 fantasy points for Joe Mixon. And the reason why I think this can continue for Joe Mixon is because he didn't even have many touches in the receiving game. C.J. Stroud now has so many different options that if he really wants to, on early downs to get going, he can really just check down to a guy like Joe Mixon, and Joe Mixon can do the rest. He's not just a ground and pound guy, he has a lot of versatility. And so that's why I really like this fit for Joe Mixon in Houston. And going back, let's talk about Aaron Jones. Because Aaron Jones is just as important, this Minnesota Vikings offense, as the continued success and hopeful success of Sam Darnold. And Aaron Jones this game really kind of was typical Aaron Jones. He wasn't necessarily overwhelmingly getting down the field. He was choosing his spots, big plays in there. 14 carries, 94 yards, 1 touchdown. for a total of 16.9 fantasy points. He's my kind of fantasy running back. He offers a balance. Not a high-end guy, but he's still a guy who can get the job done. He's going to need to beat one of the better offensive players. As you know, Seattle develops his rapport with Justin Jefferson. If Jordan Addison is unhealthy for large portions, even when TJ Hawkins comes back, all of this is going to have to make sense. And Aaron Jones just makes sense. They really needed a running back, even if, Kirk Cousins had stayed, because Alex Madison was just not cutting it. And so, picking up Aaron Jones really sets the precedent for the Minnesota Vikings, has some modicum of hope and optimism when there may not be anything right for them, because Aaron Jones is a nice little security blanket on the ground. And so guys that I'm going to talk about, that are not pictured here, are the two guys I mentioned before. Under first-year head coaches who preach defensive intensity, they really were the stars in terms of their offensive play. And it really opened up the game for both these teams. I'm talking about Kenneth Walker and Ramondre Stevenson. Let's start with Kenneth Walker, because it looks like it's going to be a very harrowing telling down the ground for Seattle. As a Seattle Seahawks fan, it was not looking pretty in the first half when it came to the running game. 2 safeties. But in the second half, Mike McDonald must have had a legendary half speed, as they say, because they came out and they dominated Denver Broncos. Kenneth Walker was a huge part of that. Opened up a lot of their offense from his physicality, his ability to have that insane contact balance. Got a touchdown. He carries 103 yards, 1 touchdown for a total of 18.9 fantasy points. So he really set the tone for that big second half of the Seattle offense. And then Ramondre Stevenson, man. Talk about being an integral part of what Ron May wants to build on both sides of football, at least on the offensive side, for that matter. 25 carries, 120 yards, 20.6 fantasy points. And he just proves that the Patriots can physical on offense, develop drive, be competent in possession, don't turn the ball over. Then they could be in much more football than we expect. And the reason why they upset the Bengals, they kept it close, they kept the football, they're going to make silly mistakes, and ultimately their defense did just enough to stop Joe Burrow. And that formula is going to have to translate. And it's interesting that these two teams, the Seahawks and the Patriots, will play each other. It's going to be a very interesting matchup, because obviously the Seahawks profile is the better offense, but the Patriots have something going here. They can develop their brand of smash-mouth football under Ron Mayo. This is going to be a really physical game. Both are good defense. Both teams have an offensive philosophy that they might want to live by. And so both of these running backs deserve a lot of recognition, especially helping first-year head coaches try and maintain that identity and set that identity from week 1. So 2 important wins for them. Overall, the running back market, very versatile, so keep your pulse on the court, on the running back market, because it's ever evolving, it's ever changing. And at the end of the day, there are going to be guys that just surprise you week in, week out. And this week, my running back winners definitely surprised me, because maybe they had to learn a new offense this offseason. Maybe they weren't expected to be good in week 1. Maybe they just didn't have a large volume of touches in NFL, trying to translate to the passing game a little bit more. Some of these guys, and I mentioned, really profile strong, physical, just classic running backs. Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon. Maybe not Kenneth Walker, because I still like him as a receiver, but what he did in that second half was exemplary in terms of smash my football. Ramondre Stevenson, one of the younger examples of that. So overall, taking advantage of this versatile running back market can really pay dividends. And even looking at this comment, all those running backs, yeah, there are some young guys in there, but they're all physical. From Ron Hayo's kind of comment here. So at the end of the day, if I'm a fantasy football manager, and I'm watching the show, looking at all the running back winners, and trying to decipher what I want for my team, this just goes to show that even when running backs are moving around, they're resetting the market, and doing different things, and performing on the field, there's still going to be guys week in, week out. Week 1 was a good example of this. They just have that aura about them. They can deliver for you, their team in real life, and most importantly, make sure that no matter what, you feel confident in what you're doing on market in terms of the running back position. Now, to do it for this segment coming up, we have to look at the running back losers. There definitely were some guys who did not perform. A lot of guys who failed expectations. A lot of guys who I was really high on, but really did not deliver for me. So I'm going to have to stand and deliver a kind of apologetic kind of segment here, because some of these guys were my guys, but it is what it is. It is still week 1. I still have hope for them, but at the end of the day, it has to be done. We're back talking about my running back losers right after this short break.